Okay, so that wasn't me. It looks like me, though. If you know, I did fall down the steps. It's become a running joke now that I fall down the steps the Friday before the election. But I think it's a metaphor, that video, because it's also all of us on election day. You know, I kind of feel like we all fell down the steps, and a lot of you feel like you got beat up pretty hard, and we're at the bottom of the steps that continued on forever. And I get it. So I just thought I saw that because, you know what? I don't want to show you clips of Trump right now. So let's just enjoy the moment where that dramatic reenactment of me the Friday before the election. And I am healing, thank God. But if I cough during the show, that's because I screwed up my chest. Having said that, it is a weird time. It's been a crazy week in Washington, as always. There's no doubt I will open the show every week with that from now on, because holy shitballs, it is a crazy in Washington with these insane appointments. I think Donald Trump only appoints people with active sexual assault or traffic investigations against them, which is a flex, I guess, but hard to believe QAnon was supporting those guys. And now, well, I'll leave others to discuss that. I want to talk about what I've been talking about a lot, which is the fact that, folks, I know it's hard right now. There's so many people who write me or reply to me on social media. People have gotten really mad at me this week because I've said, look, I get that a lot of us are kind of like, well, you know, half the country voted for this, so, you know, fuck around and find out. Right. So we're in the find out stage. A lot of people on our side of the aisle, on the left, the progressive side of the aisle, or the centrist like me, say, well, you know, that's what they wanted. They wanted 10 million in deports. They wanted, you know, a sexual predator as the AG. This is what they wanted. And I get that. I get you want to say that. I get you don't want to have sympathy for anyone on the other side of the aisle. I totally get that. Believe me. I mean, you guys know my history. Okay. I have little sympathy for MAGA. I mean, you know, if you're into death threats, you know, that's my jam. But also, here's the problem. They're not the ones that are also going to find out, okay? It's not just MAGA that's going to fuck around and find out. The find out phase also includes all of us. It includes our daughters who are worried about their reproductive rights. It includes, you know, kids who were hoping to buy homes but now might be out of the reach. It includes our friends who work for the government who are going to likely lose their jobs. It includes my community, the veterans community, where an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal came out this week, and a toss-off line in an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal that Sean Hannity ended up showing. Matter of fact, let's show that clip real quick. Let's show the clip of Sean Hannity talking about this op-ed.
The Wall Street Journal recommended that they start by tossing the Federal Communications Commission, the FTC, the SEC, the Department of Agriculture, the Postal Service. Yeah, give it to UPS. Give it to, you know, give it to anybody except them. The Labor Department, HUD, the Interior Department, the VA. Yeah, vets need the money. Give it directly to them. And, of course, the EPA, just to name a few. Now, keep in mind, the Department of Education is also very much on the cutting board.
At the end there, did you see that little toss-off line? And, hey, how about the Department of Veterans Affairs? Why'd that go away? Those veterans can just get health care anywhere. Okay, 10 million veterans get their health care from the VA. I had a veteran come in my mentions the other day, and he said, I think the VA should close. I went to their ER. I spent 6 hours there, and it was terrible. Folks, going back to that top, I fell down the stairs in suburban St. Louis, Missouri, and I spent, guess long, 6 hours at the ER. Okay? That's not a measure of success. If you've used the civilian healthcare system, there's a reason the VA has a separate one. Besides the fact that Abraham Lincoln promised that the United States would take care of those who served. So, having said that, let's talk about how we win, because there are 30 states having local elections. There are 2 states having statewide elections, and we're going to have to run for re-election in the midterms. There's a lot to learn, but the most important thing we learn is what worked. There's that cough. What worked and what didn't. And one of the keys is a guy we interviewed for the Hot Seat series named Congressman Greg Landsman from Ohio's 1st District. Now, you've seen Greg, you may have seen Greg doing some TV interviews, and you may have definitely seen, you probably did see this clip of Greg on CNN with Dana Bash. Watch this.
Talk about something that happened over the weekend, not in your district, in Columbus. A group of neo-Nazis paraded through that city wearing, waving swastikas, covering their faces. This is not the first time this sort of thing has happened. in Ohio in particular, and of course it's continuing to spread. We don't know what side of the aisle this comes from. I mean, typically neo-Nazis are for the far right.
Yeah.
You had protests from the far left at your house.
Correct.
As a Jewish member.
Yeah. Yeah, they slept outside my house for days. You know, my takeaway is this has got to stop. And the surge of anti-Semitism is global, but it's certainly here in the United States. And it does require leaders on both sides of the aisle to say, don't do that.
Is your party doing that enough?
I think some in my party are doing a ton and some are silent.
Yeah, that's Dana Bash wondering which side of the political aisle Nazis might be on. I mean, she literally speculated that since Congressman Landsman was Jewish, had protesters outside his home, that okay. Anyway, you saw that clip. So having said that, I didn't want to talk about that with Greg, but I did want to get Congressman Landsman here on the show because he did a really great series of tweets and interviews talking about what worked. The fact is, Congressman Greg Landsman represents J.D. Vance's district. He's J.D. Vance's congressman, and he won re-election, the first Democrat in 40 years to win re-election in his district. And not only did he win, his percentage went up. This is a guy we should listen to. So let's do it. Let's get on with the show. Oh, man. So let's welcome our guest, Congressman Greg Landsman from Ohio's 1st District. Now, Greg's not a newbie to the show. He was kind enough to do an interview with us for our In the Hot Seat series during the campaign. The joke, we actually talked then, so I have to remember it because this is something that nobody else has brought up in your interviews. You represent J.D. Vance in Congress, don't you?
He's one of my constituents.
I love that.
At least temporarily. I mean, you know.
I love that.
For the next couple of weeks.
And the point of that is you're the first Democrat to win re-election in Ohio 1 in 40 freaking years. And your percentage went up, from 6 to 9, I think, right?
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on the win. It's great to have you. The reason I invited you is because you did a great Twitter thread after the election saying, hey, look, I ran in a tough district. Here's 8, 9, 10 things that I did that worked. and I'm not here to talk about why Kamala lost or anything. I'm not here for that. I'm not here to talk about Sherrod or anything. My point, and something I've been hammering on the show a lot, sir, and I think you'll appreciate, is we're not done fighting, right? That this is a tough election for us, but your state, including 30 states, including yours, have local elections starting as soon as February 11th. And including, we've got statewide elections for Supreme Court in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. And of course, Virginia and New Jersey have statewide races for the governor because your colleagues, Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger, are running for governors of their state. So what I've been saying to a lot of my followers, and they're probably sick of hearing it, is, okay, we lost that one. Get back to work, you know? And something I say a lot, sir, is running for Congress is also a local race still, right? You get it. And everything you said in your thread said that, I think, right? I mean, would you say that's accurate? Like, hey, running for Congress, while it's a national office, in the end, it's all local, isn't it?
Yeah, for those that want to come back, for sure. I mean, you know, there are people who get elected to Congress and kind of disappear slowly. Yeah, and that's a huge problem. And oftentimes those are people in safe seats. It's still a problem for us. I mean, I really have tried to encourage all of my colleagues, especially those in safe seats, to go and constantly, you know, campaign or be out in the community. So going all over the district and building one, really good relationships, rebuilding trust, getting people you know, engaged or additionally engaged, but also making sure that you are hearing them and the way they're talking about issues and what issues they're talking about, so that you're talking more about their stuff than what's happening in DC or on Twitter or on cable news. So far too often you have people who just spend so much of their time here in DC, on Twitter, on cable news, and then that becomes their language, and it just doesn't hit with folks back home because they're using words that we don't use. Right. They're talking about things that we're not talking about. So yeah, one of the things that I'll always do is town halls. We did over 20 town halls all over the district, and I go everywhere. I've got a part of the district that's rural Ohio, so lots of farmers. We try to meet with farmers on a regular basis, and I don't know whether or not they're supporting me, but the benefit is, one, I have a much better sense of what they need. I can go work on those things, and I've built some trust with people who may not typically, support, Democrats, and
Sure.
and it's just showing up. It's showing up everywhere, and podcasts included. Everyone sort of has this place in real life where they go, right?
Yeah.
But there's also, most people have places they go on the internet, and they watch this show on YouTube, or they listen to this podcast, and so go everywhere, meet as many people as you possibly can, have really good conversations, learn as much as possible, and then go do good work.
It's funny you say that, because your colleague Andy Kim won Senate. Andy came on our show, in the hot seat.
God, big talented guy.
He's such a great guy, and he's the same as you. And Andy and I on the show, when we did our interview, I'm calling him Senator Andy, God bless us. And Andy and I talked about public service, and we talked about how him cleaning the Capitol that day was such an example of how he's a public servant, right? And so I see him at the DNC, and he grabs me and gives me a hug, because that's Andy. And he goes, dude, you're not going to believe this, but you got to watch my speech tonight, because it came from our interview. Because this idea of public service and how public service matters, it got me thinking. And I thought to myself, after I read it's right, you learn too, right? When you talk to people, don't you?
Correct. You're not getting a lot out of some Twitter battle. No. I don't know what you're getting out of, but there's no real substance there. And so, when you have these conversations, you pick up really important stuff that make you a better lawmaker, makes you a better human being, makes you a better politician. Yeah.
And that matters. And we talk about that a lot. And I think you learn the issues. I mean, one of the things that scares me, and especially when you talk local races or a congressional race, like you said, polling, you shouldn't have to rely on polling to know what your people are thinking, right? You should be out talking to them and learning from them, shouldn't you?
100%. So, it's polling and focus groups. And, I don't get to sit in on my focus groups. They don't, obviously that would be weird.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'll get the notes, but I try to explain to them, the campaign folks, if there's anything new, I'm going to be really super interested in that, new being new to me, because every day in the district, those are focus groups. I'm all over.
Right.
And I'm talking to teachers, and I'm talking to students, I'm talking to farmers, I'm talking to people who are running this plant or that factory. And then we have our town halls. And we do these small community conversations with groups of people, 10 to 12 people, so you can have a real conversation. We've done one with police officers, first responders, nurses, teachers, superintendents, mental health professionals, and it's just a dialogue. And it is a focus group in the sense that you're getting a very clear picture as to what people are talking about, what they want you to work on, and the words they're using, so that when you start talking, you're not doing anything other than connecting with people, as opposed to what happens with so many people up here is they alienate folks because no one uses the language they use.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the power of even someone who opposes you, a Republican, say, when they see you on TV or giving a speech later and the words are coming from the town hall they attended, no one can deny. It's like, oh, shit, I feel seen. I was 100%, seen.
Which is at the core of the human experience.
Yes.
That's what people want to know. Oh, that person likes me. That person sees me. That person hears me. That person, values me. Period. Yeah. That's it.
Right.
I don't think voters they don't want superheroes. They know that's not a thing.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as somebody who's going to go and be this larger than life, perfect, leader that's going to, do miracles. They want normal, pragmatic people who see them and they know that they are appreciated, period.
Right.
And that, ultimately the folks are getting things done for them, that they're actually fixing things.
Yeah. And I think when you're running for local race, too often we avoid, or congressional race, you avoid the harder doors, if you will. I mean, one of my policies when I have a candidate in a campaign is I get them on doors early, because the professionals, especially these, I'm going to be delicate here, the DNC professionals, I'm sorry for, you may have some working for you, the big dogs. Oh, no, we got to get the messaging right before we put them on doors. No, the messaging comes from the doors, right? The messaging comes from the town halls, doesn't it? That's the message.
I had someone I worked with when I was at City Hall, mayor at the time. He said this about doors. He said, one, in close elections, it makes a huge difference in terms of, a couple thousand votes.
Yeah.
But the biggest impact is it helps you understand your own messaging.
Right.
Like it's just, you have to have thousands of conversations in order to really understand where people are.
Yeah. And defend your point. It's funny, and I'll tell a quick story. I was an
that's right.
Yeah, defend it.
Yes, and a hard door, you can't just do it once. You got to you want to go back. So you got to keep going and going and going so that you get to a place where you're like, okay, now we're connecting.
Yep. And you convince them. And there's a satisfaction for your account when they flip that. It's funny on that note. When I was an Army spokesman, but I came into it very, very late, which is a story in itself. But I ended up being a guy who worked for General David Petraeus, who might be known as being a bit of a guy who's good with the press. And in the schoolhouse, they taught me that the way you formed messages for your unit was you would sit down and do an analysis of this thing, come up with your 3 top messages. As soon as I got to Iraq, my first big job was in Iraq, which is, God bless me. I figured out early on that if the boss said it 3 times, let's say we're in a meeting, say we was a TV interview, say it was a higher headquarters, if I heard him say it 3 times, then that was a key message. You know what I'm saying? He cared about it, and those messages came from him sitting in me, him in our world, in politics, him going to doors, him going to town halls, him hearing the issues. It sounds great that abortion is an issue on a national level, but it might not be the issue in your neighborhood or your region. And you have to figure out what that is. Yeah.
I will say the other thing is that the messaging has to be authentic to you, and you get there, I think, more effectively when you have tons and tons of conversations, because you start to not just pick up the things that matter to you and matter to the folks that you represent, but you start to identify the ways in which you can talk about them that are entirely authentic to you, right? Like, there may be an issue where I start off by knowing it's important and wanting to work on it, but I haven't had a ton of experience with it. So like, I may just be using language that I've heard from other people. Over time, though, you start to really have a relationship with it, and you're like, oh, okay, well, this is how I personally approach it. And people are like, okay, well, that doesn't sound like a politician. That sounds like just a human being talking.
Right. It's funny. I had a representative in Virginia who's actually on the other side of the aisle now, and I was on his Veterans Council. And we had spent so much time, he did veteran. He actually showed up at his Veterans Council. He talked to 30 of us, and we were from different parts of the political spectrum, had conversations. But the funny story I tell is when you really do get to know your folks at the local level, like a guy like you does, or a representative at the local level. I remember we pulled up to the Chamber of Commerce event one night. He gets out of his car, his little Toyota, jumps out, literally bumps into me as I'm getting in my car. He stops, looks at me and says, "Fred, I was just up at your alma mater. Did you hear they just unveiled the new barracks?" Because he was on the visitors committee for West Point. But it was remarkable to me. I don't have that kind of memory, by the way. But it was remarkable to me. This is a man who spent so much time getting to know his constituents, even ones may not agree with. He knew I went to West Point. He knew I cared about those things. And in about a 15-second period, he was able to bump into me, calculate, oh, this is what's important to him, his old alma mater. So I say that here because you have those conversations, you learn, don't you? I mean, you have no choice, do you?
Yeah. And so like the way in which one of the measures for me is like, how many people call me by my first name. And, when I sort of closer to election day, I remember I had to go pick up something at the grocery store. And I walk in and the first person was like, "Hey, Greg, good luck." And then, I literally, the next person was like, "Hey, Greg," and checking out the woman, she was like, "Oh, Greg, how are you doing?" And, just these are people that I know. I mean, obviously this is my local grocery store, but like the way in which folks know that that's the relationship. It's not, there's no distance, right? Like we're all in this together. And one of the things I do, and like if I'm on a parade, I don't count it, but I do kind of count the number of times people say, "Hey, Greg," or "Hey, there's Greg." Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Okay. And the other thing is I give out my email and cell phone pretty broadly.
Yep. In
part because I do want people to reach out to me directly. You'd be surprised or not surprised at how little people do. Like I'm not gonna, call my congressman all the time, but I get texts constantly from people that just say, "Hey, you may want to read this," or "I read this and thought of you." And then like I can, I'm getting content that I wouldn't otherwise get. I'm getting it from my so my algorithm is are my friends, family, and constituents. You know what I mean?
Yep, I do. And then before I let you go, I know you got to run to meetings because you're in DC. These lessons apply for what we face, right? 30 states having elections, including your own. These apply to just your friend. You probably you probably know the guys think about running for mayor, the town you live in, or the state rep. And the lessons you've just talked about for the last 20 minutes, 15 minutes, they apply, don't they? I mean, these are lessons for anyone at the local level, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's for anyone that wants to do, this is Andy Kim speaking too, which is anyone that wants to do public service, like actual public service. The best way to do it is meet as many people as humanly possible, have really good conversations, be everywhere, go on these podcasts, go on, somebody's got a YouTube show, go on for a minute, or 10 minutes and talk. And yes, policy matters. I'm a big policy guy. Andy's a big policy guy, but you can't get to the policy unless you're there having won. And, we need more and more people running for these offices that are normal and pragmatic, super engaged in people's lives. They're not trying to be anyone else but themselves.
Yeah. And
they're having some fun. Like, have fun with this. I mean, if there are lessons to learn from this election and Trump, part of it is that, he had fun. Now she brought a bunch of joy.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, one of the reasons why it was a lot closer than people thought.
I agree.
In the end, he won by, 1%, the popular vote, maybe.
Yeah.
With 65% of Americans being really frustrated with the state of the country. I mean, there is value in creating this like fun, joyous environment for people to engage.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. She had 100 days. It's hard for me to beat up the campaign. You can run a perfect campaign, but you only have 100 days to do it. It's just, it's an uphill battle. I have a hard time beating them up. I really do. There's a lot of things I would like to see more of, but then you go, it was 100 days.
As people are thinking about this, we're going to pick up 1, maybe 2 seats in the House.
Yeah.
So, the House is, everyone's up for re-election.
Yep.
Right? Like there are 435 elections and we ended up picking up some seats, at least 1. And so, look, I do think that there's an appetite for change and for that change to be, hopefully a return to normal and pragmatism and bipartisanship and people getting things done.
Well, good luck to you on that. You got a tough road ahead of you. I know it's going to be a little crazy there. I'm sure we all know what's going on with appointments and everything else. So you've got your work cut out for you, at least talking to your Senate colleagues. But in the meantime, please do what you keep doing. We really appreciate your time. Tell your staff. I'm going to say it very clearly. So we're here on the record. Your staff's fantastic for having the faith and putting you on a little podcast. So thank you, sir.
All right. Take care.
Good seeing you. Man, what a great conversation with Greg Landsman. Just say Greg now, I guess. I wasn't here to rehash things. I thought it was important to talk to Congressman Landsman because his lessons that he learned for running in his race are exactly what I've been telling you about what we need to be doing in general. Now, obviously, it's going to matter for the midterms. But more importantly, like I said, we have 30 states with local elections. We've got 2 states with governors, okay, and others. So it is important that Democratic candidates, and even if you're not a partisan, if you're running for a local board, these are the lessons that matter. Get out there. Go everywhere. Okay. I know the political industry is very expensive, but you can knock doors early. You can knock doors for them and learn. But the lessons that Congressman Landsman talks about in his campaign, and the reason he won J.D. Vance's home district, guys. I want you to wrap your head around that. In this election, where there was a huge wave that we didn't see coming, let's be honest, a huge wave against Democrats. We lost the Senate. They kept the House. We lost the White House. A thin margin, admittedly, but whole states went red this time. Oklahoma went red completely. We lost all of the battlegrounds. But in that environment, Greg Landsman, who represents the vice presidential nominee, got reelected with a larger margin than his first time. There's only one reason for that. He ran a good campaign, but more importantly, he ran a good representation for the last 2 years. He didn't just get elected and go to DC and forget the people at home. And you can learn those lessons too if you decide to run for local office or if you decide to help a local campaign run. The most important thing they can do is remember where they came from. You represent. I live in a West County town, West St. Louis County. And the guy who just won mayor there, we all know him by his first name. I was laughing when Greg said that during the interview just now. The guy that won had been a city council member and he won and everybody knows him by his first name. That's the joke. I don't even know. I'm not kidding you guys. I don't know his last name. So when I voted in the election, I had to ask my fiance what his last name was. It's just that guy, you know? So that's good leadership. That's good politics. And good representation equals good politics equals good election results. So that's the lesson learned. We're going to keep hammering these questions. Look, we're not going to talk about what happened, but we are going to talk about the lessons we can learn and apply them to the battles we face right now. So with that, thanks for joining us. As always, there's a lot of change going on in the world right now. As you know, Blue Sky is growing, so I'm there. Blue Sky now. We'll put that up. It's FP Wellman there. I'm FP Wellman everywhere. Of course, my official Instagram and official threads is FP Wellman Official. I'd love to see you there. So happy to be on the MeidasTouch Network and On Democracy podcast on YouTube. Please find us there. And I'm coughing because I fell downstairs, as you remember from the top of the show. So with that, and before I choke to death and ruin your entire day, thank you for joining us. I'd love you. Most importantly, last comment, join our Substack community. Man, we have seen a flood of new subscribers. I'm writing almost every day or every other day now, probably annoying you, but you can join for free. It is free. However, I would love you to be a paid subscriber because that paid subscribership pays for all this and pays for us to be able to do our mission and spend our time writing stories and doing what I would like to consider journalism. So if you join our Substack, it's FP Wellman there too, Substack, whatever. But join us on Substack, subscribe for free, or even better, subscribe for annual membership. I've actually got a sale going on right now. If you're a free subscriber or a new subscriber, you can upgrade to paid for a full year with 25% off. It's a great deal. So I would love for you to do that, support our work so we can keep fighting. Gosh, we have a lot ahead of us. So thank you for all the support you do give. Join us on Blue Sky and wherever else. And I don't know that place very much. In the meantime, the fight continues. We've got Thanksgiving next week, and then we go into the new year with a lot on our plate, but we can do it together. We cannot surrender. So let's not. I'm Fred Wellman, right here in the MeidasTouch Network and the On Democracy podcast. We'll see you next week.